Hey guys, I'm going to go over the algebra readiness test number 2 that y'all took last week. So number 1 said write an equation for the functions shown in the table. So we had ordered pairs of 8, 1, 12, 3, 18, 6, and 27. So your first thing to do would have been to find your slope. So I'm going to use these two ordered pairs. So it'll be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which would give me 2 over 4, which would be 1/2. So there's my slope, which means I could have gotten rid of a and d because they don't have a slope of 1/2. And then I'm going to use one ordered pair and my slope to solve for b. So I'm going to plug in 1 for y, 1/2 for my slope, 8 for x, and solve for b. So b1 is equal to 4 plus b. Subtract 4 on both sides, and we get that b is equal to -3. So my equation is y equals 1/2 x minus 3, which was answer C. Number 2, it says using the table and your equation from number 1, find x when y is 5. So here's our equation, y equals 1/2 x minus 3. We want to know what will x be when y is 5. So it'll be 5 is equal to 1/2 x minus 3. The first thing we need to do is add 3 on both sides. We get 8 is equal to 1/2 x. Then we're going to divide both sides by 1/2. Remember, when you divide by a fraction, you keep, change, flip. So that's 8 times, and then you flip this 8 times 2, and that would be 16 is equal to x. Number 3, using the table of values below, determine if it is a function or not. If we looked at all of those values on number 3, you would see that the value of 1 and 3 repeat in the x, and they have different y values. So number 3 would not be a function. Number 4, what kind of line is created if the slope is 0? So if you think of your slope guy, his mouth has the zeros at the end, so that would be a horizontal line. Number 5, which of the following represents a function? So number 1 was a graph, and it was a circle. So if you did the vertical line test, there's number 1, it was a circle. So if I did the vertical line test on that, you would see that it would make an infinite number of vertical lines, so that is not a function. Number 2 is a horizontal line, so that would be a function. Number 3 has a set of ordered pairs, and your x values are -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2, which means none of those repeat, so number 3 is a function. Number 4 is a graph, and it has ordered pairs on it. And if you did your vertical line test with those ordered pairs, you would have never made a vertical line. So that one is a function. And then number 5 is mapping. And if you look at the mapping, you'll see that 0 has 2 lines coming out of it, which means that 0 repeats. So number 5 is not a function. So which of the following represents functions? Well, that would be 2, 3, and 4, which was answer D. Number 6, a line passes through the points of 150 to 350 and 7n. Find the value of n. So if a line goes through those 3 points, that means that the slope from one to the next one is exactly the same. So if I find the slope between these two, then I can set up the slope for these and know that it has to be equal to whatever the slope was of these. So x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That would be 300 over 1, so my slope is 300. So now I'm going to use this ordered pair and this one, and I'm going to set that up to find my slope. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 has to be equal to 300 over 1. So we can solve this proportion. We're going to cross multiply here to get n minus 50 is equal to, we'll cross multiply here, 7 minus 1 is 6, and then we have 6 times 300 would be 1800. Oh, I knew there was something wrong there. Probably got to have the right number. So that was 250. So this would be 250. Sorry, guys. 250. This is 3 minus 1. So 250 minus 50 is going to be 200. 3 minus 1 is going to be 2. So 200 divided by 2 is 100. So n minus 50 over 7 minus 1 is equal to 100 over 1. So now it's 100 times 7 minus 1, so 100 times 6 is 600. And then to solve for n, we are going to add 50 on both sides to get that n is 650. Sorry about that. It would help if I wrote them down correctly. Number 7, given the equation y equals negative 2x minus 3, identify the range if the domain is negative 5. So if the domain is negative 5, that means that the x value is negative 5. So I'm going to plug in negative 5 for x and solve for y, which would be to solve for the range. So that'd be y is equal to 10 minus 3, and y would be equal to 7. Number 8, a recipe for 2 dozen corn muffins calls for 3 cups of flour. The number of muffins varies directly with the amount of flour you use. Write a direct variation equation for the relationship between the number of cups of flour and the number of muffins, and determine how many cups of flour are needed to make 6 dozen. So if the recipe for 2 dozen corn muffins calls for 3 cups of flour, that means that our equation is going to be y equals 3x. It says varies directly, so we know that's a direct variation, which means that it is a sorry about that, guys. A recipe calls for 2 dozen corn muffins, or for 2 dozen corn muffins, there's 3 cups of flour. If the number of muffins, which is 2 dozen, varies directly with the amount of flour, that means we would have had to find k, which would be y over x, which would be 3 over 2. So our equation is y equals 3 halves x, and that's why we also know that it is a proportional relationship or direct variation, because it's y equals kx. And now to find the number of cups of flour for 6 dozen muffins. Muffins was the x, so we're going to plug in 6 for the x. And when we multiply 3 times 6, we get 18 divided by 2 would be 9 cups. For number 9, the number of miles Michael runs varies directly with the number of minutes it takes him. Write a direct variation equation that describes the relationship, then determine how many miles Michael ran in 18 minutes. So if we know it's a direct variation, that means our equation is going to be y equals kx. k is equal to y divided by x. So you could have picked any of those ordered pairs on there, obviously besides 0, 0. I'm going to pick the first one I see, which was 210. So then that'd be 10 divided by 2, which is 5. So our equation is y equals 5x. And now we want to know how many minutes it'll take Michael to run or how many miles Michael can run in 18 minutes. Minutes is on our x-axis, so we plug in 18 for x, and 5 times 18 would be 90. Number 10, write an equation for a vertical line through the point 46. So if you're struggling to figure out what that would be, draw your graph. Okay, a vertical line is up and down, and any of those vertical lines are going to go through the x-axis. So your equation, since it's going through the x-axis, is x equals whatever the x value is in the ordered pair that they gave us, which was 4. So your answer is x equals 4, which was C. If y'all have any other questions, just let me know.